I'll definitely share with you. So once we are done with the recording, I'll
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Great. So shall we start? Okay, sure. Great. So recording started. Fine. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That is fine. Yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back to Pleasure Principles. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving into a topic that blends the mystical with the transformational, the infinity wave, a 10th dimensional energetic tool that promises to elevate emotional connection, dissolve the suffering, and bring us closer to freedom. Yes. Our guest today is the visionary speaker, spiritual teacher, and the author, Hope Fitzgerald. So, welcome to the show, Hope.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Lovely. So, before we start delving deep into this topic, I believe it's a really a great topic, and there are a lot of things to learn from. But I'll quickly love to introduce you to all the listeners. Dear listeners, Hope received the Infinity Wave through life changing visions in 2010. And since then, she has dedicated her life to helping individuals, communities, and even the earth tap into this powerful energy for personal and the collective awakening. Yes. So, through her work as an intuitive dowser, somatic coach, healer, and even an end of life midwife, she has touched countless lives with her wisdom and the compassion. So her new book, The Infinity Wave, is both an inspiring account of her journey and a practical guide for those who are ready to embrace the profound emotional connection and the transformation. So, dear listeners, if you are curious about unlocking your infinite potential, navigating the emotional challenges, or simply finding more joy in connection, then you are in the right place. So, let's ride the wave together. Why to wait? Welcome to the show again.
That's a great introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And definitely. So, the infinity wave is such a fascinating concept, and I really wanted to know more about it. So, if you can take us back to the moment in 2010 when this 10th dimensional tool was revealed to you, what was the experience like, and how did it change the trajectory of your life?
Well, it changed it dramatically, but I will just say that in 2010, the previous months of 2010, the first 10 months, were extremely difficult. We all have these times in our lives, I think, that we're put under so much pressure, pressure
Yeah.
to respond to events in our lives, and through those we learn, but
Hmm.
that's not always comfortable. So I had one of those years that year, and to heal from it, I went for a long series of sound healing workshops
Mhm.
and about 2 weeks worth, and fortunately, that did a lot to clear my system. In fact, sort of almost erase my sense of self in the best way. I always call it cleaning my inner bowl.
Hmm.
And so when I came home, I
Hmm.
was delightfully empty. And it was an amazing feeling to have almost no story. You know, you could have called me by any name and I would have answered. So one thing that happened, though, right before I came home was that in the very last practice of this incredible sound healers workshop, I was given an opportunity to come to some understanding of what that whole very troublesome year was about. And in my gratitude for coming to clarity and for understanding it now as a gift and not as something awful that had happened to me, in
Hmm.
my mind's eye during the practice, I went down on the floor. I went prostrate and I said to creator, source, whatever you want to call it, I said, I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. Now, those are not the words that came out of my head. I didn't, wasn't in the habit of thinking those words. It came from my being. It came
Okay.
from the deepest part of me. So I
Hmm.
only say that because it'll factor in later. So I get home and I was home 3 days and I had my girlfriend over,
Okay.
excuse me, because she
Sure.
wanted to hear about my experience. And I
Mm.
was walking across my living room in which she was sitting, and suddenly I saw a giant wave right in front of me. It was 100 feet tall. It was huge
Mm.
and beautiful. And it
Wow.
was slowly moving towards me, but it didn't feel threatening. And
Mm.
there seemed to be what I call a byline, like if you have a foreign translation, on your screen, and
Hmm.
the words to this were to this effect. This wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet. And if you learn to swim with it or surf it, things will
Okay.
go much better for you than if you resist it. And then the wave turned to on its side. So now I could see the big curling, almost like a letter C, where the wave comes up and comes around like that. And this one said basically to leave all my book learning on the shore and to go to the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of the uh, indigenous ones, the people who know how the earth works, for my knowledge. And then the wave curled around, but instead of dropping right into the water, it became a figure eight of standing water, standing figure eight of water. And for those who can see, I'm holding my book up right now, and you can see what the infinity wave, the approximation of what it looked like to me, a figure eight of standing water. There was no explanation with this, no byline, and it was about 18 inches tall and was in front of my forehead another 18 inches. And it was kind of translucent, but I was very aware of it as I went about my day for a couple of days before I didn't know why it was still there. And I didn't know why I'd had these visions, and it was all very confusing. I was a very spiritual person my whole life, but I'd never had anything like this happen. So I sat down with my dowsing rods. Now, dowsing rods, which I again will hold up here, they're two rods, they're metal, and they have a sleeve that allows them to spin independently inside of the sleeve. Okay, and this is one tool in the dowsing collection. There are pendulums, there are all kinds of dowsing tools, but this is just one, and it's the one that I use for my work for the most part. Anyway, I sat down with my dowsing rods. I had been dowsing by then for, I don't know, 15, almost 20 years. And so I had developed a way of asking questions where I could kind of get to the bottom of things. And long story short, after several dowsing sessions, I was told that this figure eight of flowing water had a name that we could use for it, for lack of
Yeah.
another name. It was called the infinity wave, and
Oh.
that it is a gift from the universe to help us through very difficult times. Because, as the
Okay.
first image said, if we learn how not to resist the changes that are
Mhm.
coming, then things are going to go better for us. If we stay
Mhm.
in wave energy, we are staying in flow. Therefore, when we're in flow, we are not in resistance. So they
Mhm.
also told me that the way it works, what is inherent in that water,
Mhm.
is this 10th dimensional love and compassion.
Cool.
So love and compassion at that level is
Mhm.
no longer emotional. It is
Uh,
so distilled and pristine that it's like the finest crystalline glass. It's not what we're used to. So when we introduce that energetic in this particular geometry,
yeah.
it changes our reality.
True.
So that's kind of the beginning of it all. But then they also told me, and then I'll pause here for you to ask a question, but they told
Hmm.
me in these early sessions that I was
Okay.
supposed to start teaching about
Hmm.
this. And I said, no, I do not. My spirituality was with me my whole life and very private, off to the side.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, you said you were a willing vessel. So
Hmm.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
very reluctantly, said, yes, you can't really say no to source. So anyway, that's what I did. And that's how it all started.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible how moments like this can spark such profound shifts, not just in the person experiencing them, but in the lives they go on to touch. So, yeah, I mean, it really sounds like the infinity wave isn't just a tool, but a, a, a universal gift that is waiting to be unwrapped. That's great, really.
That's
Thank you so much for
exactly
sharing.
right. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. And also, you have spoken about the infinity wave as a way to dissolve suffering into freedom. So it really sounds so powerful. If you can share like how this applies to the emotional wounds or maybe even trauma.
So, one of the things that I learned in the early days as I was developing these workshops, not knowing what the heck I was doing, and suddenly receiving channeled practices, and I was really walking blindly, allowing myself to work hand in hand, do co-creation with spirit. You know, it was a huge walk of trust. And so I was taught many, many things as I was teaching it. It was kind of an incredible situation. One of the things that was explained to me was that, what we have known from our past is we've known slower times. And we can look back to our previous generations, especially in India,
Mhm.
where, the holy men and women would go to the caves and be there for perhaps their whole lives, decades, whatever, that it was important to take the time to evolve, to become more and more, spiritually high frequency of a high frequency.
Mhm.
And what what the wave was teaching me is that we no longer really have that time. Time is speeding up. Our existence is going faster and faster, as everybody will agree. We all feel it, see it. Um, and so we needed a tool that could quickly click us into a place of love and compassion, which, when you think about all the religions, all the philosophies, that's what it's aiming for, right? So that we can actually live our daily lives in love and compassion. That's the goal. And some people do it better than others. Some people become, able to do all these magnificent things, bilocate, heal the sick, whatever. There are lots and lots of things that can happen. But at the core of it, for every human being, is the idea of becoming a loving and compassionate person, human being. So the I was told we needed this tool so that we could quickly click into that place.
Mhm.
Now, when we talk about suffering, there's a difference between grieving and suffering, as
Okay.
I see it.
Mhm.
Grieving is the process of dealing with loss, dealing with disappointment, dealing with pain, dealing with a lot of those things. We all know what it is.
Mhm.
Suffering is when we get into a loop of the grieving, where we're going around and around and around and around, and we're not moving through the grief anymore. We're circling in it, and it's not going forward. So
Mhm.
the infinity wave is extremely helpful at taking us from that grieving state and turning it into a spiral instead of a circle. With a spiral, we can start to emerge out of the cycle of suffering. The wave, the water in the wave, everything about the wave, and there's a lot to know, but everything about it is about moving us forward, moving blocks away, movement, getting us out of a stuck place. So when we allow the wave to work with us, we start to feel the boulders inside shifting. We start to feel, oh, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. I will get there slowly but surely. And yeah, and that's the freedom that we're after. A lot of times we're so attached
Mm.
to people, places, and things. We're attached to our emotions about something, our feelings of resentment, our feelings of anger, our frustration, whatever they are. We have an attachment to those, or about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I should have done this. I should have done that. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't so we're punishing ourselves, and that's a part of this cycle of suffering. That is all completely useless, except to learn the lessons from it and then to come out of that circle and turn into the spiral and move out of it. The wave introduces movement. It introduces love and compassion to us when we feel we have not measured up, when we're feeling guilty, right? When we're feeling imperfect. Love and compassion from the universe, God, creator, whatever you use for this to define the undefinable, is always available to us. It is infinite. And that is why it is in the shape of the infinity wave, because it reminds us there is an infinite flow of love and compassion for everyone at every moment. It's a question of the degree to which we will receive it. We are willing to receive it. If we learn to do that, then we have that much more to give to others. So that's how the wave can help that suffering situation very quickly.
Mm. Understood. So, here one thing, like for the people who might feel weighed down by the old emotional patterns, uh, how can they start to gently use the wave to release those burdens?
And the way I just said, sometimes we're not aware of what our patterns are, right? So when we start to use the wave is an evolutionary tool. It
Mhm.
is always going to be moving us along in our understanding of ourselves and our spiritual development. So, I mean, everybody should know if they're going to start using it, that's going to happen. And when that starts to happen, we start to become more aware of the patterns that we have. We become aware of the things that are holding us up. But with the wave, we start to move through those things much more easily. You can imagine, I mean, just the difference between a rock and the river, right? The rock is there to hold the river in, to maintain the boundaries of a river, to maybe even let the river fall over it, but it's going to stay still. It's going to stay there. And if we have issues in our personalities that are more like rocks, then the water will come in and start to push that rock downstream. It'll roll it out of the way, or it'll just move around it. It's no longer useful. It's no longer necessary. But we may become aware of the rock where we hadn't been before. And awareness is half the battle. So the beautiful thing, though, is so much of the time when we discover a human flaw, we are very quick to judge ourselves and punish ourselves. And
Hmm.
usually, if we look around us, we see that unconsciously we've been judging others and punishing others as well, because primarily we're doing that to ourselves. We don't even know it. When we accept, as I said before, when we learn to accept the fact that even for in our imperfect state, that we are deserving love and compassion, that can be a game changer right there. And for most people, their container for giving is gigantic, and their container for receiving is a little teeny bit, a little tiny thing, and it needs to be more equal. So
Hmm.
the wave is beautiful at replenishing anyone, and growing that receptive chalice, if you will, the capacity to receive love and compassion.
Understood. And like you have also mentioned that infinity wave isn't just about personal transformation, but also about collective awakening. So how do you see this tool contributing to the larger shifts happening in the world right now?
Oh, well, my understanding is that
Hmm.
as each of us evolve personally, raise
Mhm.
our frequency personally, become a beacon of love and compassion personally, it
Mhm.
raises all the people in our fields. Anybody we come in contact with, it has an effect on. And that ripple effect goes out and continues to multiply. I offer weekly gatherings to kind of keep that going and growing it more and more. And I encourage people, because the wave can be learned in a few seconds. It's very easy. It doesn't take a lot of language. It's all in the imagination, but the imagination, let's remember, is extremely powerful. So when we invoke the wave personally, and then let's say we teach it to a few friends or family members, and they start to use it together. Now you can send that wave anywhere in the world. You can put waves over, troubled areas without naming them right now. You can put waves into operating rooms in hospitals. You can put waves into courtrooms, into government buildings. You can put it gets big enough that you could go into space with the wave. It can be any size. It can be teeny weeny, or it can be massively big. And uh, so in that way, it starts to reorient. When you take something 10th dimensional and you bring it into 3D, 3D can't stay in 3D anymore. 3D is affected and it lifts up. I'm not saying where it goes to, but it definitely lifts. And one of the things that about your podcast that I just want to mention here,
Mhm.
because you talk about interrelations, right? So the wave is extremely effective person to person. So when you put that infinity wave one end of the loop in your heart, and then you run it across the room or across the country or wherever to a person into their heart, now the water is flowing out from me to the other person, let's say to you, and now the water flows back to me. So whatever I'm giving out comes back to me. But the wave does this all by itself. It's not Hope's love and compassion. It's 10th dimensional love and compassion baked into the water. So whenever I wave with somebody, I'm so happy because I am benefiting as well. And I feel it. It's palpable. And many people do feel it. And if you don't
Mhm.
feel it right away, that's fine. Just keep doing it, because it changes the energy in the room. It changes
Mhm.
the way people communicate. I have had people who were very upset, like ranting, raving, angry. And I just send them the wave, send them the wave, sit there quietly sending them the wave. And the next thing I know, they've calmed down, calmed down, calmed down. And now we're having a normal conversation. It just works really fast, really fast. I have many, many stories, and some of them are in my book, but um, it's it's profound. It shifts the
Mhm.
field immediately. So it can work both locally in your own homes and on a very large scale.
Exactly. Very true. Lovely. So, I hope like your name feels so perfectly aligned with your work. And if you could leave our listeners with one message of hope about their capacity for the emotional connection and the transformation, then what would it be?
As a person who had many years of punishing myself for my imperfections, I know it's not only possible, but it's desirable to get over that and to learn to accept love and compassion from the infinite source from which it dwells, streams, whatever. It will change the quality of your life profoundly. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Understood. Lovely. Great, great. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your vision, and the magic of the infinity wave with us today. And from emotional connection to navigating the change, you have given us so much to think about and more importantly, to feel. So, listeners, if you want to dive deeper into Hope's work or experience the infinity wave to yourself, then be sure to check out her new book, The Infinity Wave, and the links into your show notes. So, it will be much easier for you to reach out to her. And always remember that the transformation doesn't have to be hard, and it can be fluid, expansive, and even joyful. So, take a moment today to connect with yourself, ride the wave, and let that infinite potential flow. So do not forget to follow Pleasure Principles for more inspiring conversations and share this episode with someone who needs a little extra hope in their life. So until next time, I'm your host Avik signing off. Thank you so much.